Hey, how y'all doing? Getting in shape through natural means, right? Without drugs or any of these treatments or shortcuts is a signal for status. Why is that? Well, doing anything difficult is a signal for status, and getting in shape naturally. Unfortunately, there are no shortcuts. It takes discipline, it's hard work, and that's why it means a signal for status. It tells other people that you have got discipline and that you can be trusted to, do the work, right? And that can translate into many different areas. When someone sees someone that is in shape, they know that that's took some work, and it's almost like there's a bit of a mark of respect there, and also they know that that person has got some discipline, and you can almost like subconsciously trust someone like that. And it reminds me of when I've talked about this before on videos when I worked in corporate in the city. I used to work with a guy there, and he looked after himself a lot more than me. He was always looking after himself. And I remember what he said to me one time, which at the time I thought was brutally said. I could never trust someone that doesn't look after the weight. And I thought, fucking hell, that is pretty damn brutal. But now when I think back to it, I kind of understand what he means, right? So yeah, getting in shape naturally without drugs means status. So what does that mean if you're going to take some drugs? Well, there are many different treatments to lose weight. If we just think about weight loss a minute, right? There are many different ways to lose weight. One of the ones is, you might have heard of this gastric band, where you shrink the size of the stomach basically by, it's like putting a band around it to make it smaller. So you eat less, yeah. So it's a form of appetite suppressant, or you'll feel full quicker because your stomach is a lot smaller. So the science on that works. It just works. Now, we've also got something now called Ozempic. You might have seen it, this drug, and it was invented for diabetes type 2 sufferers. And so with diabetes type 2, you've got blood sugar issues, and basically you're insulin resistant. So people that suffer with diabetes type 2, they're insulin resistant. They can't produce enough insulin. And insulin is a hormone that we need, which when you eat, it opens the cell walls to let the nutrients in. So if you don't produce enough insulin, you can't actually replenish the cells like with proteins and things like this. So the cell wall needs to open, and you need the protein to go inside. So this is like when you have a workout and then afterwards you eat protein. You want that protein to go inside. Just by eating protein or by eating food, if you're healthy and you've not got that kind of insulin resistance problem, your cell walls open, the nutrient gets in. So checking your insulin sensitivity is really important for diabetes, and people that have severe diabetes type 2 really struggle. So they need injections, insulin injections, to give their bodies more insulin, because the bodies are not naturally producing insulin, which leads to all the problems. So like, your cell walls can't open, you can't let the nutrients in, all the calories then just store. And if you think about how you get into that position in the first place, most people get into issues with diabetes through poor lifestyle choices. That's like a poor diet, eating all the wrong things, eating processed foods, whether it's bad carbohydrates, things like that. So just to get yourself in that position in the first place, this is why you might have seen a bit of information. I've done some on keto. So a keto diet reduces, almost like reverses the effects of type 2 diabetes, because what's causing those insulin spikes is really high sugar diet, in processed foods, things like this. It spikes your insulin, so it kind of makes a mess of your insulin sensitivity. And over time, if you eat all that crap for years and years and years, you'll put on weight, but also you'll mess up your insulin sensitivity to the point where your body can't produce enough insulin. You end up with diabetes. You have to take the injections. Anyway, gone off on a sidetrack. Ozempic, this drug that is now available for treating diabetes type 2, one of the side effects of it is it suppresses the appetite. It's got something in it, semaglutide, right? This agent that is an appetite suppressant. So what it does is it slows your digestion down and it makes you feel fuller for longer, right? And when this drug came out, Ozempic, doctors realised that people started to take Ozempic off-label, not for prescribed reasons of diabetes type 2, but just to cut weight loss because it actually worked. So the manufacturers of Ozempic then looked at this, the drug, looked at the semaglutide inside the drug, which is responsible for reducing the weight loss, and they reduced another version of it called Wegovy. I've wrote it down here. So this is like Wegovy is the same thing sold for weight loss. So you might have seen it online. A lot of people have posted huge results of losing massive amounts of weight with this drug. Right, so it does work, and I'm not criticizing these drugs at all, because if you ever get yourself into a position where you're severely overweight, it is very, very difficult to shift that weight, and what you want to do is just to get rid of the weight in the most efficient way possible. So there is an argument for this drug. The problem is there are a few side effects, and there are also a few unseen side effects that I'm going to point out, which are more around the mental side of it. So the first obvious side effects which are known about Ozempic and Wegovy are, because of what it does is it slows your digestive system down. You can get, like, the main side effects are things like nausea. You've got like bad digestion. You just feel full, and people are like vomiting and things like this just because you can't digest the food. And I think that could be even more pronounced if you're still eating the wrong food. So if you're still eating like the same food that got you overweight in the first place, and you're still eating like cakes and pizza and things, then that's just going to sit on your stomach and feel horrendous. I don't know, like, if you eat a clean diet and then let's say like you go on holiday. So I eat pretty clean, but when I go on holiday, if I then go away and I start eating like fucking pizza and ice cream and all this stuff and cake and stuff, I just let myself go every now and again. I actually feel terrible after eating all those bad carbohydrates like that. It makes me feel very sluggish. So I can imagine if you're on this drug, and these people that take this drug and then they're still feeding themselves that same diet, I can imagine how bad it's going to feel. But anyway, notwithstanding, the side effect of the drug is that nausea, and you want to be vomiting all the time. And you're also fighting against nature there, right? So the other side effect, there's other side effects too. Things like people are abusing it, so that they're massively losing too much weight in a week. There's people posting like 15 pounds weight loss in a week. That is too much. It's like what I've always said on my videos, when you go on a cut, it's far better to cut gradually, like a small amount each week over a longer period of time, over a few months, than it is to try and absolutely starve yourself and crash diet that over a short period of time. Because one of the issues with reducing something like, if you're like taking drugs or anything, or even trying to like crash diet and reduce too much weight, these people that are posting that they're losing like 15 pound a week on Ozempic or Wegovy, the main issue with that is you're going to lose a lot of you're going to stall your metabolism. You're going to lose a lot of lean mass too. So one of the issues with this appetite suppressant, not only does it reduce weight just because you're consuming less calories, but it's slowing your digestion down to the point where you're going to start losing the nutrients you need to retain the lean mass. So you'll start losing muscle. And I think the issue with that is you could end up in a very bad situation if you take this drug, because yes, you'll lose a lot of fat, but you'll also lose all the lean mass. And I think at the end of it, you'll end up skinny fat, which is an absolutely terrible body composition to get out of. I think if you're slightly overweight, it's far easier for you to grow muscle at that point than it is from being skinny fat. Whilst I accept that these drugs work and they are a tool, the main issue is unless you change your life, right, to become the person that stays in shape naturally, even if you're going to use these drugs to get you there, unless you change your life to become that person that's going to naturally stay in shape because you've changed your lifestyle and your habits and everything, you're working out, you're eating right, one or two things are going to happen. First, if you stop that drug, you're just going to yo-yo back to your weight. But the other problem is, it's almost like an unearned benefit, right? You haven't become that. So if you take these drugs and you don't start living correctly in accordance with that person that's in shape, and this is like when I talk about identity, if you don't live according to that new identity, as in the way you live your life and your lifestyle choices, there is a mismatch between who you have become and who you really are inside. So there's an identity problem there. And I think that's the biggest problem here. Because if we think about it, people that get in shape naturally, as I said at the start, have status. Status is an indicator for discipline, someone that gets things done. And if you don't develop that discipline, then you haven't really got that true identity. You are not really that person, right? And this is why I don't like drugs. Me personally, I don't even like things like, I'm not even a big fan of things like testosterone or like, the gear and things that bodybuilders use to build muscle. I'm a bit more relaxed on that because whilst it's not natural, those people are working very hard and, they're putting in the effort. So the bodybuilder that takes a few drugs to get bigger is actually working very, very hard and living very, very well at that point. But they're just using performance enhancing drugs. So I'm a little bit more relaxed on that than I am with the weight loss. I just see these weight loss drugs as being, honestly, I don't mean to be horrible, but it is just taking the easy route out instead of learning to have the discipline to do it. So, and I think that's a real travesty, because if you don't develop the discipline to lose weight naturally, you haven't really developed any discipline in your life at all. And that discipline can be translated into all sorts of different areas. The person that is able to get in shape naturally is also able to start a business, push through, get the life that they want. They have so many better things happening in life. They get the results that they want. They tend to achieve more in terms of the personal life, the professional life. And it is just a genuine transferable skill to develop the discipline. So those people are probably more focused in every area of life, even in the personal lives, they're more focused. And I think it's a discipline worth developing. So yeah, the biggest issue of relying on drugs to lose the weight is that you've not actually become that person that loses the weight. You've got a mismatch between who you really are and what you look like on the external. And that is a very, very fragile relationship with yourself, because you become dependent. You've built a dependency. And to me, that's going against what I always talk about when I say create your own personal sovereignty. Personal sovereignty is about you not depending on anything else to achieve your goals. So what does it mean to develop the discipline to lose weight naturally? Well, firstly, it's not easy, right? And I've done this. I'm just going to show a little picture of me who I was. So this is a picture of me in 2018. You can see me there on the left there, looking quite overweight. Actually, I'm not actually the fattest person in that picture, but I basically I was probably about 4 stone heavier than I am today. And the other thing is, I'm wearing that silly pink t-shirt, which, you know, it was a charity thing, so that's fine, but it just makes the whole thing look ridiculous. Now, if you look at me on the right, I'm absolutely pretty shredded at that point, veins popping everywhere. And I did this with discipline. No drugs, just literally focus, sorted my diet out, got my lifestyle right, and I got rid of the weight and I built lean mass, right? So it can be done because I've done it myself. So I'm not a doctor or anything, right? This isn't about this. One of the I'm not a great believer in drugs at all to solve any issue. I always think that, like, you know, living according to the identity that you choose and living correctly will generally solve 99% of all your problems. However, a doctor friend of mine is always quick to point out that there are certain scenarios in life, like, you know, diseases that you can just get where we do need drugs, and I accept that. But most of the time, all of these issues that we're talking about today, majority of them are self-inflicted. And the route out of them, the proper route out, the true route out, is, unfortunately, it's the hard way. It takes discipline, and it's doing it the natural way. Because if you do it the natural way, right, what are the benefits of that? You feel fantastic, you you look great, you feel fantastic, and you develop that discipline. And there is a huge amount of respect for someone that does that, because it's just such a hard thing to do. And this is why I think that's the best way to do it. Even if you need a few drugs to help you along the way, back of your mind, you've got to see them drugs as just helping you, right? If you become reliant on those drugs, you've not actually achieved anything. If you become reliant on the drugs to the point where you cannot come off the drugs in the future and retain the body composition that you've got, then unfortunately that is not really succeeding, if you ask me. That is becoming dependent, and you live in a false identity. Correct me if I'm wrong, I'm all right to have some comments on that. That's just my opinion. And what does it mean to lose that weight naturally? Well, we don't just want to lose the weight, we want to lose the weight and build some lean mass. So we want to change our body composition, right? And I've talked about, I did a few videos about skinny fat, how to get out of skinny fat. That was aimed at guys more. But I've also done a lot of videos on whole foods diet, which is what I promote. And a big part of it is it's a mindset shift, right? It's creating that identity for that person that you want to be. I want to be that person that is in shape and stays in shape. And so you've got to create that identity for yourself, but then you've got to start living it every day with, you know, good habits that are going to support that identity. And also understand, just like any goal I talk about on my channel, I'm not into quick fixes on anything. And you know, anything that is a quick fix, it's almost like it's not earned. It's a bit like when people, I've talked about this a lot, it's a bit like when people play the lottery. I don't play the lottery, right? I mentioned in another video, I nearly won a lot of money once. Like there was 82 million on the Euro Millions. I was in a syndicate, and we're one number away. We got like £7.5 grand, right? But I thought, £82 million, I'd rather earn £82 million, because the journey and the personal development to get to the point where you earn them millions is worth more than the millions. Because once you attain that, you can go and do it again. You can go and do it again. It's like the people that win the lottery, a lot of them, if someone wins the lottery and they're the sort of person that just has a bad relationship with money and they've, you know, never earned money in life, they're not going to hold on to that money. It's just going to go. Most of them just end up broke again in a few years. So really, it's not about. It's a bit like, if you keep giving someone charity, are you helping them? I give to charity, don't get me wrong, but if you keep giving charity to someone, are you really helping them, or do you want to teach them how to stand on their own 2 feet? And this is what weight loss is about, right? You don't want to, just like the person getting the charity, or someone's out of work and they're on benefits. I know it's tough, but that person, rather than just keep handing them benefits, it would be better to teach that person a skill where they can go and earn their own money. That's going to last them longer. Otherwise, they're just forever dependent on that benefit. And it's the same with the drugs here. If you need the drugs to stay in shape, you're dependent on those drugs. So that mindset shift is absolutely huge, right? It's one of the biggest parts of it. It's having the mindset, creating that identity for who you want to be, and then it's having the discipline to live according to that identity every day, right? And the way to do it is to develop the discipline to control your diet. The thing with training, people think you can just go out jogging and start losing weight. You'll lose a bit, but I'll tell you now, you can't out-train a poor diet, right? So your diet is about 85% of this problem. And right, here's what I would do. On my website, andyholt.co.uk, right, I've got a page here called Diet Plans and Recipes. All you have to do is go over to my website, andyholt.co.uk, and then go to resources under there, Diet Plans and Recipes. So this here is my blueprint, right? It explains everything that I do and that I have done to not only lose the weight, but stay in that shape. Very easy now for me to retain body composition. I hardly train as well. It's because I've done the right things over a long period of time. And once you get to a position where your body composition's right, it's quite easy to maintain. So if you hop on over to this, right, and I'm giving you this for free, right? This is a flipping blueprint that works, right? And it's based on 4 principles. Whole foods wherever possible. The first thing you got to do is cut out processed foods. They're not good for you. They keep you out of shape, and they're full of crap, and they're just flipping poisoning you. So you've got to cut out processed foods, right? And that, unfortunately, that means you've got to learn how to cook. Or even if you can't bother cooking, just eat bland, right? But do not eat processed foods or cut them down. The average diet in the West is probably about 80% processed foods, because we go around the supermarket and we're just grabbing packets of this, and because we can't be bothered to prepare it, right? You've got to get out of that, and you've got to start eating whole foods. Whole foods are ingredients in the raw form. So meat just meat. Vegetables, just vegetables. Salad, just salad. That kind of thing, right? And then you start from there. So unfortunately, you'll have to learn to cook. Whole foods, high protein diet. You want good quality protein. Obviously, if you're plant-based, you got to look at high quality plant-based proteins. Low overall calories. So you want to control your calories, right? Which is a hallmark of longevity. And then the other one is generally low carbohydrate. I would say that. Now, there is an argument over carbs and fats, right, which I talk about on my diet plan. The next section is about carbohydrates and fats. The reason why I control carbohydrates is I do eat some carbs, but when I do, I only eat whole foods carbs like potatoes, maybe a bit of rice. I'm not eating processed carbohydrates like you're getting pizzas and bread and, cakes and shit like that, like the really, really over-processed bad carbs. And the other thing with carbohydrates is they've got a lot of sugar, obviously, because that's what carbohydrates are, and they spike insulin, right? So when we talked about insulin resistance, what you want to do is lower your insulin, you sort your insulin sensitivity out and lower your body inflammation, right? Because body inflammation is the root of all these diseases like diabetes and things like that, and heart disease and everything else, right? I'm not a doctor. I'm just, some of this is anecdotal, but it's also, you know, I've done a lot of study, a lot of reading on it, and I'm fucking living proof of this, that it works, right? So what you got to do is understand that you've got to shift if you're going to shift your body composition, because you don't just want to lose fat, you want to build muscle, right? And if you're just taking something like Ozempic to lose weight, but you're not shifting your diet, you're just going to lose all that lean mass as well and lose that weight. And you'll just feel terrible, you know, because you're still eating that poor diet. You need to be looking at any of these drugs as a tool to help you lose the initial weight. But then you've got to start living right. So you've got to sort your diet out. So it's whole foods, high protein, low overall calories. And then at least you're going to start to, when you come off these drugs, you can start to retain and build lean mass. So the reason why things like Ozempic and Wegovy work is because they're suppressing your appetite, right? Now, what else suppresses appetite? Two things I've found suppress appetite. One is protein, fills you up like nothing else. So if you eat, you know, if you go to like McDonald's and eat loads of fries or pizza and stuff, you don't feel full. You want more, right? Because you've got that kind of craving, you know, for the carbs. Whereas if you eat a good piece of steak, you're full, you're done, right? So protein fills you up. The other thing that fills you up or helps is killing those cravings for those bad carbohydrates. So I spent a bit of time going a bit strict keto, and it absolutely killed my cravings for anything carbohydrate or sugar related. And it got to the point where you could just fast it out for days. You just didn't feel hungry. And once you get past, it's like killing any addiction. It is a form of addiction, that processed food, bad carbohydrates. It's like we're addicted to it. And you've got to cold turkey it out, you know. When you first go on keto, they call it the keto flu. Now, I'm not saying you have to be keto, but this is the tool I used to kill those cravings in the first place. I absolutely went cold turkey on keto. It is horrendous. But once you get past, there becomes like a tipping point where you've killed the cravings, and then you don't look back. And it is a discipline, you know what I mean? I'm not saying it's easy, it's very difficult. But unless you do that, you're never going to enjoy that life of permanently staying in shape. So basically, you have to do it. You have to do it to become that person. And then what actually happens, once you get over the hump and you've killed those cravings, you know, and you're upping your protein and you're starting eating whole foods, you don't need, when you first start, it's hard because of the cravings, but once you get through it, you don't need any of that. You can walk past all the shops and everything and not even feel any cravings to go in. The difference is absolutely huge, right? And in my diet plan on my website, I've got pretty much everything here, even things like tips for eating out. What do you do when you go to a restaurant, right? Because it's always better if you can cook your own meals from scratch. And learning I've got some recipes in here. They all take about 20 minutes to prepare, right? Once you get the skill down, they take 20 minutes to prepare. They're all majority whole foods. They're high protein, low overall calories, generally low carb. And if you just eat them, it will sort out 85% of your problems. Like I say, I'm giving you all for free here on my website, right? Now, when you go eating out at a restaurant, because you're not preparing your own food, you don't know what's in the food. So you've got to watch it. What you've got to understand with a restaurant is they're there to make money. The restaurant's interest is always to keep that food longer until they sell it, you know, because if you think about processed foods are all about preservatives and retaining the composition of the food so it lasts longer, shelf life. That is also aligned to a restaurant's profit. So what you got to do when you eat out is obviously watch it and just cut things out. So, you know, if you're going to get like a steak dinner when you're out, just drop the chips, right? If it comes with chips or potatoes, just drop that, add more salad, and you know, so you want meat and veg, meat and salad, that's it. And the other thing, tips while you're eating out, is just try to fast. You know, reserve your calories for when you get home. Don't eat as much. Don't go for the cakes and things. What is the common thing with people that go and get these drugs or treatments? They've all, mostly, not always, but most of them have a problem in their lifestyle, in their diet, and they're overweight. They've all got there through the same means, which is eating all the wrong things, eating too much of the wrong things, and not balancing it off with any exercise, right? That's normally 99% of these people. It's self-inflicted, right? And the way to reverse that is to do the opposite of what they have been doing. So, you know, if they take the drugs but don't change their lifestyle. I caught a meme posted online about Ozempic, and it was something like, take Ozempic, eat what you want and still lose weight. And I thought, that is nonsense. If you, right, yeah, you're going to rely on the drug, still eat whatever the hell you want and lose weight, right? That is absolute nonsense, right? The drug itself suppresses your appetite, so you're naturally going to eat less. Unless these people that do that are prepared to change the habits and the lifestyle and the diet, then it isn't going to work long term. It's just going to yo-yo. The minute they come off the drugs, straight back on. And like I said, if you don't actually start living accordance to the person that you want to become, if you don't create the identity and start living according to it with good habits, you haven't actually become that person. And this is why I am just not a fan of any quick fixes at all. I don't believe in shortcuts. I only believe in discipline, long-term habit change. That is the way to do it, right? That is how to get what you want out of life. Unfortunately, it's a hard way. But once you develop that discipline, like I said, it transfers into other areas of life. You can use it in your business, you can use it in your personal life, you can stay in great shape, and it's easy to stay in shape because you've built the habit. You know, you've literally changed the person that you become. So I hope that was useful. Let me know what you think. I might have been a bit brutal there on some people. I do understand that if you're struggling with weight, it can be difficult, right? But like I said, everything is on my website in that diet plan. I will put a link down below, right? And if you were just to develop the discipline to do that, or your variation of that, I'll tell you now, you will get in shape. Yes, you have to exercise, but let's remember, right? If you're a guy and you want to build muscle, what you got to remember is that the gym, you don't lose weight in the gym, by the way. 85% of weight loss is in your diet. What you're doing in the gym, you don't even grow muscle in the gym. You're just stimulating the muscle. All of the work is done later with good sleep, good diet, a good rest and recovery, right? So all the work is done later. This is why sorting your diet out is 85% of the work. You really should study this. Hop on over to my website. I'm giving it you all there for free, the blueprint, and just let me know what you think. Hopefully you understand it, and you understand that I'm not like, you know, beating on people that are struggling with weight, because I was there. What I'm saying is you've got to develop the discipline. Otherwise, it's all right taking drugs, right? Even if you want to take drugs to build muscle, like flipping, you know, take some whatever, you know, TRT, or you want to go worse than that, you know, take some gear. I think you're still shortcutting there, right? Living this way with the whole foods diet and getting that in place, and living correct with good sleep and working towards your goals, getting little wins, small wins every day, and achieving big milestones, That's how you build testosterone naturally, right? I've never took any drugs in my life, right? And I've still got high testosterone, right? Just because I live right. That's what you should do. You can still develop testosterone and stay healthy naturally for a long time if you live right. Good sleep, whole foods diet with good quality protein, training correctly. You don't have to overtrain. You have to train correctly, right? And get good rest and recovery. And the other one is make sure you're smashing your goals and you're getting small daily wins and eventually achieving things, because achievement boosts testosterone. All right, let me know what you think. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe. See you all next time.